At the beginning of the movie, we are introduced to a young Bernard growing up in Texas in 1939. He is not playing in the dirt like other boys his age. Instead, he is crouched outside a bank with a shoeshine kit, scrubbing the boots of businessmen and listening, really listening, to every word they say. These men talk about loans, properties, interest rates, and investment deals without even registering the small black child polishing their shoes at their feet. But Bernard registers every syllable. The moment each customer leaves, he pulls out a worn notebook and writes everything down: figures, names, strategies, terms he barely understands yet but knows he will one day. Then one afternoon, curiosity gets the better of him. He sneaks up to a window to watch a bank meeting happening inside. A police officer spots him immediately and the chase begins. Bernard runs fast enough to get away, but the cop shouts after him, "Your father will hear about this." That night, Bernard's father sits him down with a voice caught somewhere between fury and grief. He explains that black men have been killed for less than what Bernard did today. He sees the notebook. He reads the numbers. And here's what breaks your heart. He tells Bernard that he is brilliant, genuinely brilliant. And then, in the very same breath, he tells him that white men will never allow that brilliance to make him rich. Bernard listens, but he does not agree. Fast forward to Los Angeles, 1954. Bernard is now a grown man, married to Eunice, a woman with grace and iron in equal measure, and together they have a young son. Today, the family is visiting Eunice's relatives, and her uncle casually mentions that a major aircraft company is hiring black workers. It's steady money, decent wages, a safe path forward. Bernard turns it down without hesitation. He has a different vision. Real estate. Buy a property, rent it out, collect income, reinvest. Simple on paper, complicated when you are black in 1950s America. The uncle is not impressed. They are currently living in a small shed on his property. And here is Bernard talking about investments he doesn't have the capital to make. The tension at the dinner table is thick, but Eunice defends her husband quietly and completely, telling her uncle that Bernard is exceptional and that their situation is temporary. Later that night, alone in the shed, Bernard promises her, "I will get us out of here." And the way he says it makes you believe him, even though you probably shouldn't yet. The very next day, Bernard takes Eunice's cousin Tony along on a drive. Tony's friend Matt sees Bernard's car and assumes he must be wealthy. Tony tells him Bernard owns buildings. It is only a half-truth. Bernard has the plans to own buildings. What he needs is the execution. Bernard spends the day walking through buildings in white neighborhoods, taking mental notes on every structure, every price tag, every potential return on investment. He tells Eunice that evening that he has found the perfect property. The problem, buying it will leave them with absolutely nothing left for repairs. He needs a co-investor. Eunice thinks of someone, a man named Joe, her former employer. She sets up a meeting. Joe turns out to be loose, jovial, a man who treats every sentence like the setup to a joke. Bernard can't read him. He doesn't trust what he can't read, so they leave without even sharing the business idea, until on their way out, they see the state governor walk through the door, specifically to visit Joe. Bernard files that away and says nothing. Bernard moves forward and approaches the actual building owner, a man named Patrick. His proposal is direct. "If I buy your building, loan me $10,000 for renovations." Patrick walks him through the math of why that can't work. The numbers Patrick uses are wrong. Bernard corrects them on the spot, calmly and precisely. Patrick is visibly surprised, but he still says no. On his way out, Bernard notices a calendar on Patrick's desk, sent by a man named Reed at Mid-City Bank. Bernard goes to that bank. He asks for Reed. The secretary tells him Reed is unavailable. Bernard can see clearly through the glass that Reed is sitting right there at his desk. He is being turned away because of his skin color, and they both know it. So Bernard walks outside and simply waits. When Reed eventually leaves the building at the end of his workday, Bernard is right there. He doesn't ask for charity. He pitches a deal, one that will benefit Reed and Patrick both. A deal built on logic, not sympathy. That night, Bernard tells Eunice the meeting with Reed didn't go anywhere. Then the phone rings. It's Patrick. He wants to know if Bernard thinks what he did, using Patrick's name without permission to get a meeting with a banker, was normal business practice. Bernard says no. Patrick laughs. He says he likes people who don't play by normal rules, because neither does he. He tells Bernard to go to the bank in the morning. He will be the guarantor on the loan. Bernard and Eunice go out that night to celebrate. Joe is at the same club, still cracking jokes, still getting under Bernard's skin. Bernard still doesn't like him, but the loan comes through and the real work begins. Bernard and Tony start the renovations themselves. One of the longtime tenants, an elderly white woman, sees them working and refuses to believe Bernard owns the building. Then, Matt shows up to help. Bernard asks him point blank if he would have a problem working for a black man. Matt says he only cares about one color, green. The three of them work hard. Two police officers arrive after the old woman makes a complaint. Bernard shows them the paperwork. The officers leave. The woman moves out the following morning. Within days, the building is fully occupied. Black families moving in, rents coming in, the model working exactly the way Bernard said it would. Patrick is floored. He proposes a formal partnership. Bernard selects the buildings. Patrick acts as the public-facing buyer to deflect racial discrimination. A clean 50-50 split. They shake on it. For the next several weeks, they work like a machine. Tony and Matt handle the renovations. Eunice handles the interiors. Buildings multiply. Money grows. One day, Bernard asks Eunice to walk with him through a house he has been thinking about, then reveals it is their new home. No more shed. No more borrowed space. Then Patrick dies in his sleep. After the funeral, Patrick's wife sits Bernard down and offers him 25% of what the business is worth. Bernard reminds her their agreement was 50-50. She calmly reminds him that his name is not on a single single document. If he wants to fight it, he is welcome to find a witness who can prove otherwise. Bernard goes to Reed at the bank. Reed refuses to see him. Standing outside, Bernard looks up at the building, really looks at it, and something clicks. He goes to find Joe. The idea is bold, and Bernard delivers it like he's been holding it for years. They should buy the building that houses the bank. Once they own it, every banker who rents space there will have to deal with them. No more closed doors. No more invisible walls. Loans will flow. Properties will multiply. Everything changes. Joe loves it, but points out a problem. No one will sell a landmark building to two black men. They need a face. They need Matt. Matt is approached. He looks at these two men, asking him to pose as the buyer of a multi-million-dollar property, and he nearly chokes. He's a guy from the neighborhood. He knows cars and construction, not banks and board meetings. He walks away, but then he goes to a diner. A waitress named Susie notices he looks like he's carrying the world on his shoulders and asks what's going on. He tells her, a little embarrassed, that he's been offered a job in real estate. The way Susie's eyes light up is all it takes. Matt goes back to the group and takes the deal. The training begins, and this sequence is genuinely one of the most entertaining parts of the movie. Joe insists they need to learn golf because that is where rich white men do business. So at 6 in the morning, Bernard, Joe, and Matt are on a golf course, looking wildly out of place and loving every second of it. Joe's banker friend Donald joins them and agrees to lend $2 million toward the purchase. Bernard promises he'll get the building for less. Matt has to learn everything: golf, math, fine dining, how to hold a glass, how to sit in a suit like it belongs on him. He struggles, he sweats, he messes up calculations and shanks golf balls into the rough. But slowly, steadily, something shifts. The day he sinks a hole-in-one and rattles off a correct calculation without hesitation, the group knows he is ready. They identify the target, a man named Charles who frequents an exclusive country club. Joe gets Matt in as a guest, playing his driver with a completely straight face. Matt works the room. He plays a sharp round of golf. He gets a meeting with Charles in his office. Joe and Bernard drill him all week on every possible question Charles might ask. When the day comes, Matt sits across from one of the most powerful real estate owners in California and recites memorized figures like he's doing the math in real time. Charles agrees to sell for $1,560,000. The group erupts. Within months, the trio becomes the largest real estate operation in the state. The banks that once refused to see Bernard are now writing him checks. Matt marries Susie. They meet the vice president. The dream is not coming. It has arrived. Then in 1963, Bernard goes back to Texas to see his father. The old man who once warned his son that the world would never let him win is now sitting across from that same son, a millionaire, and telling him how proud he is. They take a walk together the next morning. Bernard stops at the corner where he used to shine shoes. He asks the new shoeshine boy to polish his boots. The boy refuses because Bernard is black. Bernard stares at the bank. That bank where he once pressed his face against the glass, where he wrote numbers in a notebook that no one thought mattered, and a new idea takes root. He tells Joe they are going to buy the bank in Texas. Joe thinks he has finally lost his mind. They know nothing about banking. Texans will not accept a black man owning their bank. But Bernard's argument is airtight. There is an entire market of black borrowers who have never been allowed to access capital. If they open that door, the money flows. Joe argues. Joe resists, and then Joe agrees because he is not about to lose Bernard over stubbornness. Donald helps Matt purchase the Texas bank on their behalf. The previous owner retains a 20% stake, along with his son Robert, a detail that will matter very much later. Bernard begins quietly visiting black families and black business owners across Texas, telling them the bank's policies have changed. Loans are available, but keep it quiet. Within 3 months, black-owned businesses across the region are growing. The loans are working. The plan is working. Then Robert starts paying attention. He notices the volume of loans Matt is approving and begins asking questions Matt can't answer. He follows Matt. He takes photographs. He sends an anonymous letter to the U.S. Treasury Department. A month later, an inspector is coming. Matt's solution: buy a second, smaller bank, divide the loans between both institutions, and the numbers will look less suspicious. Joe and Bernard warn him this is dangerous. Matt holds firm. Make him a full partner or he walks. With no clean alternative, they agree. The day the federal bank examiner arrives at the small bank, the entire system starts to buckle. Bernard disguises himself as a janitor to try to help Matt through the meeting from outside the door. The agent closes the door. Bernard can't help. Matt begins to crack under questioning. He runs to the bathroom to confer with his friends, goes back in, and runs again, this time with a stack of files because the examiner has found errors neither he nor Bernard can explain. And then the worst realization hits. Matt confesses he used a different lawyer to process the documents faster. That lawyer was recommended by Robert. Robert had been setting them up from the beginning. The final cost to make the problems disappear: $300,000. Joe and Bernard tell Matt flatly that this is his problem. They warned him. He went ahead anyway. Then Donald calls Joe to say his bank purchased all the bad loans from Matt's. Joe and Bernard storm into Matt's office furious. Matt reveals he's been quietly modifying the books to buy more time. Before anyone can respond, Treasury Department agents walk through the front door and announce the bank has lost its license. Clients are ordered out. The bank is closed. Joe and Bernard step outside, and the FBI is waiting for them. The charges against them at the state level are eventually dropped, but federal charges remain. A senator is holding congressional hearings about loose banking regulations, and the lawyer tells Joe and Bernard that their case may be used to make a political point, which could also be their way out. Meanwhile, Matt Matt is offered a deal. Testify against Joe and Bernard, and his charges disappear. He takes it. In court, Matt paints himself as a manipulated employee. He says everything they needed him to say. Bernard is then given his own choice. Agree that he exploited loose regulations for personal gain and walk free, or say what he actually believes and risk prison if the court decides his account conflicts with the testimony of white witnesses. Bernard goes for a walk with Eunice that evening. He tells her what is at stake. She tells him she will be beside him no matter what door he chooses to walk through. He walks into that hearing room. He picks up a cleaning uniform from a chair. He holds it up in front of every committee member in that room, and he speaks about founding documents that promise equality, about loans that were denied not because of risk but because of race, about the American dream that was written for everyone but enforced for only some. They take everything, the buildings, the money. 3 years in federal prison for both Bernard and Joe. Eunice keeps one house, the one that was in her name alone. When the two men finally walk out of prison, Eunice sees them laughing. She cannot understand why. They tell her what she didn't know. Before Matt testified, he came to them privately. He explained that refusing the deal meant 50 years in prison. They told him to take it, and in exchange, quietly, before the government could touch a cent, Matt purchased 2 homes in the Bahamas in their names. They lost the fight, but they didn't lose everything. And it turns out the hearing mattered more than anyone expected. In 1968, Congress passes the Fair Housing Act, making it illegal to deny the sale or rental of property based on race, religion, or national origin. Bernard Garrett's testimony, the case that was supposed to destroy him, helped write that law. That boy who pressed his face against a bank window in 1939 Texas, who was told by his own father that the world would never let him win, ended up changing the rules of the world itself. If this story moved you even a little, do me a favor and subscribe to Muvora Recaps if you haven't already. It genuinely costs you nothing. But walking away without subscribing after watching this far? That's cold. Drop a comment below. Do you think Bernard made the right call going against the deal? Or should he have taken the immunity and protected everything he built? I want to hear your take.